All right, welcome. We're going to get started here. Thank you all for joining and coming on. I know we're all probably working from home. I was planning on being in San Diego, where it's currently nicer in Portland, Oregon, where I'm at, but also working out of my barn in Sherwood, Oregon. So not quite sunny San Diego. Uh, we're all probably in a similar spot, quarantined, working from home. So hopefully you've got your coffee ready and you're ready to sit down, learn some stuff with me. There's question sections within this system. And this is my first time using Zoom as a webinar, so forgive my hosting ability if it's not perfect. We'll get through the content though. We are recording this, so we'll send that out afterwards. We've got a blog I wrote yesterday that kind of addresses some of the things we're all thinking about and where the businesses need to be going. And so this talk was originally designed to be done at MIVA on stage at MIVACon down in San Diego, but obviously things have changed. Thank you, coronavirus. And while this is good content, I'm going to probably go through it pretty quick because I want to get to the end where we talk about what we're all thinking about the coronavirus, how businesses need to react. This is mainly from an e-commerce perspective because at MIVACon is an e-commerce platform, and I work a lot in e-commerce. I'm passionate about it. I have my own businesses that are e-com focused. So hopefully I've got some good insights on what we can do with that. So as we go through this webinar, go ahead and put questions in there about this content or about things going on outside of this, how your business needs to react, how your clients need to react. And hopefully we can get to those at the end. If we go over, feel free to drop off. We're recording it, so we'll send that all out along with the slides as well. So without further ado, let's get going. What we're going to talk about today is setting and executing the right goals for your business. And this is something very passionate to me because often I'll be working with a client or a prospect or any just business owner that I know that we interact with. And often we find out that marketing goals are not always aligned with business goals. And it can lead to lots of frustration on both sides. The business owner and the executive team are frustrated with marketing. Marketing's frustrated with the executives that they're hitting goals, but the business isn't succeeding. So what I want to do, especially in this time period that we're in, I think it's going to become even more important to be aligning all of our marketing goals with where the business wants to end up being. And so today, hopefully, I'll give you some of that insight and what it looks like for all of us as we go through this process. Let me see if I can get this thing on full screen. We'll work on that. Who's Logical Position? Hopefully you're on this because you've heard of us, you know what we do. Some numbers, though, we're very data-driven analytical people. We spend all day in Google Analytics looking at stuff. So here's some important numbers for Logical Position. 2009, we started. Right now, this number's a little outdated. I think we're closer to 7,000 clients, but 6,300 active clients that we manage. They're Google ads, Bing ads. Some of them we manage SEO. About half of our clients are e-commerce. And so we've got a large swath of data. Some of them are small. Some of them are some of the biggest advertisers on Google. We've got over 800 employees. All of us are in the US, so there's a lot of work from home going on right now. We have 9 offices around the country. Hopefully soon we're going to be in Miami because, who doesn't want to travel to Miami and experience some more sunshine when it's appropriate? Who am I? And why am I here in front of you talking? I'm the Director of Partnerships and Client Solutions at Logical Position. Some numbers around me. Been in the digital marketing space for over 10 years. Worked with a company that was acquired by Logical Position in 2015. We basically brought the e-commerce team into place that's now operating. I've got 5 businesses with my wife. We also have 4 kids that are 6 and under. We're fairly insane. But we do have 8 acres outside Portland. So as we are homeschooling our kids for the next month, maybe 2 months, who knows, at least we do have some room to run and ride their bikes outside and enjoy the outdoors in Oregon. All right. So when people went into business, they went into it with the right heart, the right expectations. But when you don't have the right alignment with your goals and what you're trying to accomplish in different areas of your company, you can come into some frustrations and problems. So hopefully we can talk through the right goals for your business at the right time. And obviously, I think most companies now are rethinking their marketing goals. And so we're going to talk through what they could look like through this at a high level. And then at the end, we'll kind of add in some things that weren't going to be talked about at MIVA through this. But when we started business, most companies see this graph and say, this is exactly where I want to be. I want to go up and to the right. I want profits to go up. I want revenue to go up. I mean, that's really why we go into business. We don't go into business hoping that things are going to go terrible and fall off a cliff because of a virus. That's never in anybody's plan. It happens. But when we set goals, they're usually not to fail. They're usually here to go up and to the right. And so most people have probably heard of the Fortune 500. Biggest businesses on the planet. This was started in 1965 or 1955, sorry. So we've been going on this for quite a while. But what's fascinating to know as you look at this Fortune 500 is the staying power of the companies on there. And when I was growing up as a kid, this was kind of like my goal. Like when I was growing up, I really wanted to be like Mike. I drank my Gatorade, but if you know me, you know that genetics was against me and being able to dunk a basketball. I'm 5'6" on a generous day. But I looked up to GE. That was kind of, if you've grown up as a kid in the 80s and you liked business like I did, this was the guy, Jack Welch. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. He's recently passed, but he wrote books. He was leading the company of General Electric, the biggest conglomerate in the world at the time. And it was really cool because he had this mentality that you are going to win. If you're not one or two in a division, you're not going to be a part of GE. We only work with the best, and we want companies that do this. And his leadership was phenomenal by all measures. Like the stock price of GE was up thousands of percents during his tenure of 20 years, 1981 to 2001. But if you know anything about GE recently, fractions of the company that Jack Welch left. They've been humbled, to say the least. Verge of bankruptcy. The coronavirus is probably not helping, but last I saw, their stock price was down at $6, down from highs much higher than that. They had to cut their dividend to a penny. It was one of the best dividend stocks for years. Obviously problems. So if GE and Jack Welch, who left the organization and still advised and was kind of a part of the leadership team there for a while, if a company like that can fail, it's like, what is going on with the rest of us and what chance do we have? So if we look at the Fortune 500, in 1955, there were 500 original companies there that started the list. By 2020, only 60 of them remained. That means 88% of them went bankrupt, they were acquired, or they failed to keep growing. That in and of itself as a statistic is daunting. It's also actually exciting because it does mean that we have chances. And another way to measure this, another number I like even more as a company that's maybe not on the Fortune 500. And I looked at the list of attendees, and I don't think we have any Fortune 500 companies on the list. Well, no, take that back. There are some of you out there. So some of us are trying to go for you probably. But Standard & Poor's, another measurement that we all are fairly familiar with, the S&P 500. Again, a measurement of the top companies. But look at this graph here. In 1965, it started, the S&P 500. The average staying power of a company on that list was 33 years. In 2026, they expect the average company on the S&P 500 to only last 14 years. Not all of this is due to misalignment of business goals and marketing goals. I'm not going to claim that marketing is the end-all be-all for when it comes to this, but it does mean that well-aligned companies that are positioned to grow have an opportunity to grow really quickly. There's also opportunity to fall really quickly, but it's encouraging for all of us that are not quite on that Fortune 500 or the S&P list that there is going to be shakeup. But it also means when you're up there, it takes a lot more work to stay up there. You have to constantly be looking at what is our company doing? Where are vulnerabilities? What kind of goals am I setting that are good? What kind of goals am I setting are bad? And I'm actually talking from a position of experience on this because I've had really bad marketing goals despite being what some would consider fairly intelligent in the online marketing space. I've had to, slap myself silly a couple times saying, why did I set that goal? Because I thought it was a great goal. Thankfully, I measure and look at my goals quarterly, and I realized that the goal wasn't driving the business where I wanted to. So I had to go to the team running the marketing on that business for me and say, hey, my bad, set a bad goal. We need to pivot that. And I know it's frustrating getting new goals, but this is going to be better alignment and better for all of us overall. And so some of the filters that I put stuff through, I'm going to share with you and what it looks like. And we're going to focus on digital marketing because you're talking with Ryan Garrow, who's a digital marketing guy. That's where most of my skill set lies and most of my expertise, as is logical position. And logical position actually um, the growth within the organization. And one of the reasons we set goals to grow is not only because that's kind of the way we're ingrained from the age of kids, but also that um, as an organization, growth can allow you to make mistakes. And I think no matter how good you are in business, you're going to make mistakes. But if you, for example, going into this last couple of weeks, if you were struggling as a business 2 weeks ago, more than likely you are really struggling. If you were if you were a restaurant and putting people in the seats for your restaurant 2 weeks ago, and now nobody can even come in your door if they wanted to, your business is probably going to really struggle now. And so having marketing goals that align with where the business is trying to get and how aggressive you can or cannot be will help forgive things. Logical Position now has 200 salespeople, and there's a lot of growth that comes from having a sales organization that big. It wasn't always that case, but we had a lot of aggressive strategies to grow and push through. And because we knew we were going to grow, we could take risks in testing new things. And we obviously failed in many cases. We still fail, but that's where we learn a lot. But that growth allows us to have some forgiveness in that. And so today we're going to talk through some of those marketing goals and what it means for a business to take those goals, step on them when appropriate, pull back when not appropriate, and what's the lens as a business that you need to be filtering your goals through. So we're going to talk about 3 simple buckets here. Online businesses have 3 main categories. You got the traffic that comes to your site, you have the site that converts it or the conversions within it, and then you have retaining and growing them. So that's your email, your loyalty, your social, and remarketing. All these things work together to grow a business. Your traffic, you have all these other different areas. Basically, this is the channels in Google Analytics that you can say, this is where you can push for more traffic. If you've got an email database of a certain size, you can email them more, but there's a certain limit to the effectiveness. You don't want to email them 5 times a day. So email may be capped based on the emails you have there. SEO, that's a needle that does not move very quickly. There's certain things you can do to move it in a couple of weeks, but generally speaking, SEO takes some time. Paid search, easy push-pull on that. On the website, the platform you choose, the speed that it operates. You can do CRO, conversion rate optimization. You can do discounts, you can do products. I mean, there's so many things you can do to improve each one of these categories. And so for most companies, you probably need to have goals on each one of these categories and then have sub goals within them for each one of the areas. So you should have a goal to increase conversion rate on your site. If you're averaging 1% conversion rate across your site, if you increase that 10% to 1.1% across all traffic and you maintain traffic, guess what? You just increase revenues on your entire business by 10%. So setting goals around that for a year and then measure against that. Like, how did you improve your conversion rate? How did you test discounts? What did you do with loyalty? If you don't have a loyalty program, I'm going to tell you right now, in this economy, you need to have a loyalty program. I don't care who you are. You need to be doing something to keep your customers loyal to you. Again, so these are the 3 big categories. Focus on each one of them, set some goals around them. We're going to focus today on paid search. Not only is it one I have a pretty in-depth knowledge of, I spend a lot of my own money on paid search for my businesses, but it's also a lever that can move very quickly one way or the other. And I love that in an economic time such as this, because sometimes you have to move levers very, very quickly and react very quickly. And so we're going to look at a business today. Well, first of all, let's talk about what paid search can do. And so you've got little categories within paid search. And when I say paid search, I generally mean things you can pay for through Google Ads. It's not always search that you can spend on YouTube. You can spend on display ads and remarketing. Not always a search involved, but generally what you can pay through the platform of Google or Microsoft Ads to generate traffic to your site. So at the top, you have display, video, some social things can be in there if you're paying for it. But generally, social can also be YouTube. I mean, Google's kind of looking at YouTube as a social channel anyway. Below that, you have non-brand search, and that's people that are looking for your product or service that don't know who you are yet, or they're unattached. And then at the very bottom of the funnel, right before they make a purchase, you have brand and you have remarketing. That's in search and shopping. You have brand searches, and generally, people will move through this funnel. If you spend more at the top, generally the next layer becomes bigger. It's very difficult to spend from the bottom up. You can't spend a lot of money on your brand terms generally and grow your top of the funnel. It doesn't necessarily work that way, and hopefully conceptually we all see that. But we don't have a very clear path to conversion anymore. It used to be, maybe 10, 15 years ago, there was a click and there was a purchase, and it was very easy to say, where did that click originally come from? Now, basically, this is your conversion path in analytics. If you spend any time in an analytics path, they may have clicked on shopping on a non-brand term, but then they went through and touched your organic, then they got an email from you, and then they hit a meatball and a tomato on the way to converting through direct traffic. And so trying to unpack all of that, you can really get lost in the minutia of a conversion path. There's no end to chasing these little trails all over your website to figure exactly how everybody's converting on your site. And so knowing all of that, what we have to do is look at this and say, we're going to use some best practice and understanding of our conversion paths, but we're not going to get lost in the details, as we know that investing more in awareness on video and display will generally send more traffic through non-brand. And we're going to talk a little bit about non-brand's impact towards the end, but keep it simple for most companies. Most companies do not need to go and analyze to the nth degree every single conversion path on their site. There is some value to understanding it and where that specific channel is playing. But for goal setting, most of people on this webinar are not going to need all of the minute details within that. All right, so we've got a company. Pause for a second so I take a drink of coffee and keep myself going. All right, we're keeping things very simple on this. I know this is a horrible broad stroke, but without going simple, it's very difficult to make points around what could or should be done for a business. So we've got an average of 50% margin on our products. All right, pretty standard. Every dollar that comes in, 50% of that is going to be profit. All right, and then you have two opportunities of looking at this profit. And you have the way you can look at it is profit from the Google ads, or maybe you have profit from email, various other things. But we're going to say, all right, we're looking at paid search, and we want to look at a 5x goal. And a lot of businesses hit this goal because, hey, we've always gotten a 5x on our money. So every time we spend $1 in Google ads, we get $5 in revenue. It's always been that way, so that's our goal. We will not go below that, 5x, because we want profit. Because break even on that is actually a 2x. So paid search is driving profit. Absolutely nothing wrong with profit. We're all in business generally for profit. I didn't see any nonprofits on the list. So if you're out there, you probably still need some profit from your services, even though your goal is not profit. It's usually to serve the people you're selling for. So what I see most businesses do when they set marketing goals, it's like, all right, last year we drove $100,000 of revenue from paid search. Great job, marketing team. This year, our goal is to increase 10%. So we want you to drive $110,000 of revenue. And to do that, we're actually going to give you 10% more ad spend, $22,000. So we're still going to keep that 5x, but now because we want to grow 10,000 or 10% more, we are going to give an extra $2,000 to the budget. And this could be a month, this could be a year, however your business sets goals. But this is a lot of times how businesses are going to set their goals. There's not a lot of thought around it. It's just, hey, last year we grew 10%. We want to grow 10% again, whether our shareholders want that, or whether the business owner needs it, or we just, as a business, we need 10% profit growth. Great. Awesome. Very simple to see. 22,000 turns into 110,000, and we have this wonderful money printing machine, and everybody is happy. That's not how it works often. I don't know if you've been in marketing where that has been the way we have set goals, but often it is because of that spaghetti bowl, things are not as clear as that. And there has to be some ways to look at this and keep it simple, but understand that the world does not work in linear fashion. Just because you set a goal doesn't mean that's the goal it's going to hit. It doesn't even mean that just because you want to grow 10%, that you should actually have your paid search be growing 10% like that. So think about goals. Obviously, SMART goals are everybody's, kind of general definition of what a goal should look like or be. Obviously, specific, measurable, attainable, blah, blah, blah. Apply a lot of that to the math behind the goals you're setting for marketing. And we're not going to jump into calculus, so don't worry about these types of things. I like to keep it simple. You don't have to be great in math to be great at setting appropriate goals. And so really, as a business owner or an executive team that's setting goals for marketing, you need to decide, are you looking for profit now, or do you want profit later? It's not that these goals can be exclusive of each other, but it's very difficult to push for both of these at the same time in the same ads account in Microsoft and Google. And so we're going to walk through, what does that look like when you do profit now or profit later? But step one, you have to have your account generally broken out into brand, non-brand. And for most companies, this makes sense. So if you haven't separated out your Google ads and your Microsoft ads for brand and non-brand, both on shopping and search, I highly recommend you do it, or at least consider it. It does get a little complicated on shopping to actually get very clean brand data. But even if you're a retailer, it can make sense to separate your brands that you're selling out into brand, non-brand. I see a lot of companies and agency breaking things out by margin in their shopping account. And often that is the worst way you can break out a shopping account. What most people don't know is that over 50% of the time on Google Shopping, when they come to your site from a product, they bought something other than that product. So that means if you're saying, oh, these are low margin products, I'm going to bid less on them because I don't make as much per sale, chances are they're buying something else. And so you may be advertising a low margin product, but they're buying a high margin product most of the time. In that case, you may want to bump that up. And so there's very often very little chance those separations of margin work. And so I like going brand, non-brand. I like looking at the products. If there are different margins on the site, if you label your campaigns and ad groups correctly, you can actually go into Google Analytics and see what they clicked on and see what they actually bought and move directionally based on that. Because it's 100% of the time, they don't always click this product and buy this product, but you can see the numbers and actually start working your return on ad spend goals backwards from that. But obviously digress. It helps to have brand, non-brand breakdown when setting goals. It's appropriate for most companies, but not all. You do have to have some brand search available to do that. So if you're a very small emerging brand, it may not make sense to break it out yet, but hopefully your goal is to get to that point. And then what you do is you set your goal around non-brand traffic, because generally speaking, those are your new customers. And brand terms for most companies are always going to be profitable at a very high level. And you can't necessarily set a goal around what you want your brand terms profit to be, because it's going to fluctuate. So let's hypothetically say you're averaging a 50x return on your brand terms. Every time somebody searches for your brand and they click on an ad, you get $50 for every dollar you spend. Highly profitable. But let's say tomorrow the brand terms drop down because of Google changed the SERP pages, so they're not clicking on ads as much, or maybe a competitor jumped into a position so your brand traffic dropped a little bit, or your click cost went up, so instead of a 50x you drop down to a 40x. There's a lot outside of your control when it comes to your brand return. So don't focus on brand terms. What you want to focus on as a brand is new customers. That's the lifeblood of a growing company. If you don't have new customers coming in, life becomes difficult and the forgiveness of mistakes becomes very, very small. If you can only focus on your current customers, it may not be good when something like this coronavirus hits your economy. So 50% margin, if you want profit now, all right, you need to spend money and make money right now. There's other parts of your businesses maybe that need to be covered. If you have a retail storefront and rent that's due, you need profit from paid search because you don't have profit coming from retail. That happens. So some companies have to have a profit now. You're going to focus on non-brand search on what that is. Your profit, again, is already coming from brand terms. They may drop down in volume in this time period, but you can still push on non-brand where appropriate. So if you have a 5x return on ad spend goal on non-brand searches, that's both in shopping and on search, your $110,000 of revenue, again, taking the same example, equals $55,000 of profit. So again, simple math, we're dividing it by 2 because you had a 50% margin. You had $22,000 of ad spend, and you had 10% of ad spend. Let's say you had an agency fee managing that for you, and they charge you 10%. Therefore, your total cost was $24,200 to get that $55,000 of profit. That generated $30,800. Fairly simple math. You spent money, bottom line of the organization at a 50% margin, $30,000. I know I'm oversimplifying this because of returns, fraud, shipping, everything. We're just going to keep things simple to prove a point here. What if instead this company considered a 4x return on ad spend goal? I'm hearing some gasps, or I'm feeling them at least. They're, oh my gosh, dropping our ad spend, our return on ad spend goal. We've been hitting a 5x for years. That's been great. Why would we drop our profit? Well, generally, when you lower your ad spend goal on non-brand, you can spend more because you can get more aggressive, cover positions maybe that you weren't able to before. But as you moved up in position, maybe your click-through rate got higher. Lots of things happen. Let's hypothetically say, though, you could double your revenue. You had $100,000 in profit, but you had to spend more money to get it. Okay, so you had $50,000 of ad spend to get that $200,000 of revenue. You paid an agency. They made $5,000 for that. So your agency fee and ad spend, $55,000. Guess what? $45,000 in profit. That's more, even though you had a lower return on ad spend goal. It doesn't always work this way, but so many times it does. Most companies focusing on profit now do not allow for profit maximization. It can be complicated, but it's not. If your agency's done it before, your internal team has done it, profit maximization is way better if you're looking for profit now. You don't A 5x goal may be an ego goal because you've always got it, but at the end of the day, I don't care about ego. I care about money in the bank. I'd rather have more money in the bank. And so often what we'll see is that we have a supply demand curve scenario kind of like this, where your profit per order at a lower volume is higher, at a higher volume it's actually lower. And and so generally, you'll see people move down this curve where your profit may stay exactly the same, but you got a higher volume of orders. So even if you spent your return on ad spend goal down to $30,000, but maybe you spent $75,000 at a 3x. And I didn't do the math, but maybe that's your break even on volume, but you got a lot more customers in your database. That's a huge win for the exact same amount of profit. Yes, you spent more on Google. Yes, your agency got paid more, but at the end of the day, you had the same profit or higher profit. Who cares? If you've got a credit card on your Google ad spend, you just got airline miles. Fantastic. Your wife or your husband's going to be way more excited. They get to travel more and do more because you spent more on Google. Yeah, Google stock went up, but you made more money or made the same and got more out of that because you have more customers in your database, which we're going to touch on in a second. All right, let's take the other side. Let's just say you're looking for profit later. And what does that mean? How many people would be looking for profit later if they could get profit now? Good question. Glad you asked. All right, profit later. We focus on non-brand, and we look at what would it do to the business if you focused on getting profit later. All right, let's say we're going to break even then. Non-brand, spend unlimited amounts to break even. Now, this can get crazy, and I've told people this, and I ask that if you do know my wife or you meet my wife, maybe don't tell her that I'm willing to do this, but if I could spend $100,000 tomorrow on advertising and some of our businesses and generate $100,000 of profit, I would. That would make her super nervous because, just truth be told, I don't have $100,000 in the bank to spend on that. But again, your merchant processing account will pay you back generally quicker than you have to pay Google or Microsoft on that spend. And if you're spending $100,000 a day, you probably have terms with Google and you're paying a net 30 after the month. And so you've already made all of your money before you even paid for your marketing. But it's break even. It's not exciting. Nobody gets really excited to say, yeah, I made absolutely no money off of my Google ad spend. It wasn't that exciting. But let's play this out and see what it looks like. 200,000 of ad spend equals $400,000 of revenue. Guess what? That didn't make money. And so I would figure the 200,000, including agency fees. So maybe you spent 180, whatever your agency fees are. Just figure that that's in there. But you got $400,000 of revenue compared to what happened at a 4x even, where you got 200,000 of revenue. So you doubled your revenue. That means you doubled your new customers probably. I'm assuming that the average order value stayed consistent. That adds in a tremendous number of new customers on non-brand to your account, people that are looking for your product that didn't know about you. So that gives you new customers, which is always good. And it gives you the ability to email them for future profits from orders. Most of your profit later will come from email. In fact, we partner with a company called ListTrack on a lot of our emails for larger clients. And they'll tell you at a minimum, you should be expecting 30x return on your ad spend from email. If you spend $10,000 on email, sending it out with the team that's doing it, you should generate $300,000 at a minimum of revenue from your email. And they say they even have some clients doing 200x. Email is probably the most profitable ad spend you can have in marketing. Like, spend money on email, it prints a lot of money. New customers, the thing I like about getting new customers, number one, it's new customers, it's fresh blood into your company, it's figuring out new things. You can test more emails around them. You can many times look better to your suppliers because you're selling more volume. Also, most customers that are searching for a non-brand search term within your account, they're unattached to a brand. If you don't get them, more than likely your competitor is going to get them. And it always makes me feel good to take clients from my competitors. It doesn't matter what business I'm in. I've always enjoyed that. I am aggressive by nature, and if my competitors go out of business because they couldn't keep up or couldn't do things as well as I am, that's kind of on them, not on me. But new customers are very, very valuable and can help your grant. So in my world, I try to get as many new customers as humanly possible. Or how many? I don't run my marketing, but the people running my marketing do. So your competitors don't get the customers. You also have this wonderful thing called the halo effect. And we've seen this through all of the data, all the years we've been doing this. The more you spend on non-brand shopping, what's crazy about Google Shopping, not only do they often buy a product that's different than the product they clicked on, but they also don't buy from Google Shopping often. So if you look in Google Analytics and you look at your assisted conversions, your shopping campaigns will often, your non-brand shopping will often be introducers to your brand and not closers. And I don't shop this way, so it's very unique to me. Like if I see something on Google Shopping, by the time I click on it, I've already decided to buy it. I'm going. Um, but that I'm not most people, evidently. So the more you spend on non-brand shopping, the more that you're going to get through direct traffic, the more that you're going to get through email, and the more you're going to get through organic traffic because they keep researching and coming back to you. The more you invest there, even if it's at break even, there is going to be a positive effect on your brand overall because of the other channels that have a lift because of that. That is going to be different for every company out there, but understand that it's there and you can actually measure it in Google Analytics by looking at assisted conversions versus closed conversions as you step on the gas and spend more on Google Shopping. So just be aware of that. It's there and it's a wonderful impact to have as you're looking at things. So the spaghetti thing that keeps happening, you're going to have lots and lots more spaghetti to play around with and a lot more noodles there that people are converting all over the place because you've invested more in getting people on there. Okay, so in summary, right before we get to the end, we'll talk about the coronavirus things. But in summary, big now doesn't guarantee big later. So small companies, you have a great chance. If you're on this call and you're one of the big companies, you have to be creative at staying up there. You've got a lot of companies shooting for you. You've got to be unique. You've got to be constantly pushing the envelope. Align paid search acquisition goals with business goals. So your business wants to grow. Maybe the business wants to grow 5%. That could mean that paid search needs to grow, the new customers in by 20% because there's some attrition in your book, or that social is going to drop down, or organic. Google had an algorithm update that hurt you. Therefore, you have to invest more in paid search. There's a lot of things that can go into that conversation. But you can basically on Google Ads or Microsoft Ads, you have a choice of profit max now or profit max later. I personally prefer profit max later, where I will spend unlimited amounts at break even to grow my business and take clients from my competitors. You have to obviously have a solid product and a solid email campaign and loyalty program in place that allow you to bring them back into the brand. I talked to a guy this morning that sells high-end cell phones, and he doesn't have a lot of repeat business. He's like, I sell $300 to $800 phones on the internet, and people replace their phones maybe every 2 years, and a lot of people don't let me email them. I was like, that's unfortunate for you. What I would do, though, is you need to start thinking about how do you get other products that these people are wanting. Understand your customer, get other products you can cross-sell. Look at the what company is it? Look at the way that mattress companies have worked. They started selling mattresses, but they realized, hey, people don't buy mattresses very often. So I get this customer, spend all this marketing dollar and energy in getting them. If I don't get profit on that, that's a problem. So I need profit now. Other companies came along and said, ooh, I'm willing to not make money on that mattress because I'm also going to sell them a pillow. I'm going to sell them sheets. I'm going to sell them bed frames. I'm going to sell them everything in the bedroom because I know they have a bedroom because they just bought a bed. So how can I create a lifetime value scenario based on my product by bringing in other products that person or customer needs from you, or they're buying somewhere else? I mean, it's not like you buy one product and that's done. You're never buying anything else again. There's other things you're going to buy. It's how do you as a brand align your brand and the products they may need because they bought this product. And then don't ignore the halo effect, right? There's a lot of benefit and upside to spending more money and driving more people to your site because they're going to come back through on other channels. All right, COVID-19, and what are we doing here? Not a lot of questions yet, so I'm not too worried about that. So I'm just going to go right into this. And what happened? Oh, so don't know what I just did there. Let's try to go back to my thing. Here we go. Present. Sorry about that. All right. So we're in an unprecedented time period, right? Nobody necessarily saw this coming. Last year, I thought that the economy was going to go down. Didn't necessarily know what it was going to look like. Turns out it did, but it didn't go down as quick as I maybe thought it was going to be. And so what I can tell most companies is you have to approach it from a position of calm. If you are reacting, freaking out, it is not a good time to make big decisions that are going to impact your business. Step one, get to a place of calm and peace where you can look objectively at your business and try to make decisions that are going to be overall positive for you, depending on where you're at in the business world. All right, get expert advice. I don't know where you're at in business. I don't know what decisions you're looking to make, but I always recommend that you are going to want to talk to an expert in that space to hopefully get some solid advice that can challenge what you may or may not be thinking. And so get expert advice. And when in doubt, my default is to go. It's I like just taking action and figuring it out as I go. When you do this, you can't necessarily be afraid of failure. It's going to happen. You're going to make mistakes. But if you're moving forward, it's much easier to move and pivot. You're I've very rarely seen it that I will make the best possible decision from the start. Generally, I have a good idea of what's going to work, and I'll start doing it, and I'm going to have to pivot a little. Maybe this part of that decision wasn't great. Sometimes it's a horrible failure, and I reinvent very, very quickly. I have had failed businesses, and I'm not scared of that. Um, but I know that once something is in motion, it's much easier to direct. All right, be creative. In this scenario, in this time period, there's a lot of unknowns. We don't necessarily know how long we're going to be quarantined. Some of you aren't quarantined, but you're probably going to be. There's the to stay put laws in New Rochelle, San Francisco, telling people just to stay home regardless. Many businesses have to get creative. And if you're not just an e-commerce business, if you were an escape room, for example, there's some problems there you have to compensate for that can't be fixed through marketing, which is fine. But you're going to have to get creative. And we're going to touch on a couple of those in a second. Some of you need to find partners, like find ancillary businesses that are also struggling that you can work together to solve the problem together. Don't assume that you are in the situation alone. There's a lot of businesses going through this that want to get creative. If you can find some partners to get creative with. In fact, I talked to one company that ships bikes all over the world. They're one of the biggest shippers of bikes. Guess what? Nobody is shipping bikes right now. None. And then nobody is traveling and needing bikes. They're doing some other things I think that are really smart. But one of the opportunities to get creative and find a partner, I was like, what you should do is go find the people that are helping people train on their bikes from home. So there's got to be some YouTubers. There's got to be some Instagrammers that are really popular in the biking world. Reach out to them, give them a kit, say you're going to ship their bikes for free for the next 2 years, wherever they go, and have them train wearing one of the kits for your company. Get creative, think outside the box, take some risks. Giving away kits and free shipping in the future is probably not a huge risk for them, but be creative, find some partners that you can figure out how to get in front of your new customers. And then I always want to make some assumptions that we are in a new normal. Like it's not going to be the same. We're not going to bounce back to how we were before. I personally think that retail stores, while they were on a decline before, they are probably done. Like I think JCPenney released some stuff that they are just going to close all their stores done. They're never coming back. They're going to focus online only. Like there are some big changes happening. I believe we will look back on this COVID virus, and it's going to be a tectonic shift for business in the United States. I think this will be a big deal. So if you assume that and make some decisions based on that, if it does go back to normal, you already know what to do. You've been doing it for a while. So if you assume a new normal, you're going to make some decisions that say, all right, if this is how it's going to be for a while, what are we going to do to survive and thrive? And so what I wanted to do as well is talk through different, based on the business that you're in, there are some different things you can be doing. So let's hypothetically say you are a retail store with an e-commerce site. I happen to own one of those. My wife's business is a retail store on our farm. It's home decor. And it's not necessarily a booming business when you have a retail storefront. And so we've had to pivot, and thankfully we've been doing it for the last 3 or 4 months, where instead of being a retail store with an e-commerce business, we became an e-commerce business that happened to have a retail store. She loves retail. We're never getting rid of it. Doesn't matter how much money we lose. It's her passion for her. And so, but through that pivot, we happen to be very well prepared for what has just happened in a 2-week span, where the store's not going to be open for probably a month and a half, 2 months, no foot traffic available. Thankfully, we've been ordering to allow for better, easier things to ship. We got some shipping things in place. Thankfully, we partnered with UPS. We got some good rates. There's a local delivery company that charges, I think, $5 flat to deliver something around the city. And so she's able to push and play through her email list and through Instagram and some of the influence partners she has in the city to actually get products sold. So yeah, we're in lockdown in Portland, but we're still selling things through her site. So you need to be pivoting, that you are no longer just a retail store. We've got some big clients that have 40, 50 retail locations, and the e-commerce was a side basically a side hustle for the whole brand, and the whole e-commerce focus was getting people to buy online, pick up in store because they would order more. They are obviously rethinking that now. They have to jump in with both feet into e-commerce because people can't pick up in store, but they still need to keep their employees busy. They have stores that can be shipping locations. They have a lot of advantages over their competitors because of that, because they have product distributed all over this area. But understand that you are now an e-com business with a retail storefront, even if you keep it. Like, you probably have a lease that causes that. So if you are an online retailer selling other brands, like you don't have your own brands, you've been a retailer, you went from storefront to online already, you did that years ago, now you're an online store, you need to keep pushing on your marketing. You need to be aggressive, like spend down to that break even. You have to be aggressive. If you have um, something you can trademark, a design, something that you can break out. That's what my wife and I are doing in her space, is how can we basically go towards Magnolia. I don't know if you guys follow Chip and Joanna Gaines, but Magnolia has done a phenomenal job of having a retail storefront and making it a destination. Like, if you've not been to Waco, there's legitimately no reason you need to go to Waco. There's there's nothing there. And if you go to Baylor, that was one thing. Other than that, Waco is not a fun place to be. Magnolia has somehow made that a destination. My wife's been there twice. I've been there once. I actually had a great time. I'm not going to knock Waco at all, but it's been a speed bump between Austin and Dallas for its existence. And now it is a destination because they built this brand around retail, and it's an experience. So your retail stores have to be changing into that. But if you are a retailer selling other people's brands, find something that you can own. My wife and I are going through that now. We'll find something we can own, some trademarks, some design that we can utilize on mugs, on shirts, on things like that for a starting point. But it allows you to own something. And then the margins generally when you own a trademarked product are better when you sell them at retail. But you really want to find a way to become the Nordstroms or the Zappos in your industry. Like, I'm pretty sure Zappos is pretty much responsible for Payless Shoe Source going out of business. Payless Shoe Source was one of the largest shoe retailers, if not the largest in the country, and they are no longer in business. Maybe their name and online store possibly is, but Zappos took them out, and now they have Amazon's backing. If you're buying shoes, I'm probably going to Zappos because I can buy 3, return 2. I like it. And this is a fun thing that happens a lot of times. I'll talk to a retailer online, and I'll be like, okay, so you sell 15 different brands. You sell a lot of these products. Great. You have a great selection. Good job. What makes you better than your competitors? Almost always, I have better service and more knowledge. I hire the most knowledgeable people in the business. Everybody knows that. It's great. And that's my best. So I can charge a little bit more for my product. Guess what? No, you can't. People that haven't bought from you don't know that you have good service and good knowledge of the product. They can see reviews, but most of them just want to see a price. And if you're 10% higher, chances of you even getting the click and getting the chance to get them, not going to happen. You need to match or beat your competitor's price whenever possible. Your service and your knowledge will bring them back into your brand, and so you'll have a higher lifetime value, and that's where you can be more confident spending down to break even. But if you're going to start at a higher price point online with the same exact product, most people don't care about your service or your knowledge. They're going to assume a lot of online retailers, if you've got a lot of product reviews and a lot of reviews because you've got a lot of sales, you're generally going to be a reliable retailer and get the product to them, and that's what they care about most. If you do want to keep that retail store going, again, we'll have to touch on this. You need to separate out your marketing into foot traffic driving and e-commerce driving. So I think e-commerce sales is going to be your focus, and that should be. But if you're going to drive storefront sales, you need a different goal for that and a different way to measure it. So you can't just roll up your marketing budget into one thing. So do keep that separate, and understand that you're going to be driving probably more of an experience than you are selling products through your website. So through your storefront. So if you were doing the buy online, pick up in store, you might need to pivot that a little bit and try to drive an experience. If you're a brand with retailers and direct-to-consumer sites, I own one of these, and I think it's a great place. Don't be afraid to sell at the same price as your retailers. So many companies and manufacturers I talk to have this problem of saying, I don't want to compete with my retailers. Some of that may be an agreement that you put in place that maybe needs to go away. But by and large, retailers are beginning to understand more and more that they're going to compete head-to-head with the brand. Nordstrom knows that they're going to sell Nikes for the same price that Nike sells them at. It's understood. They're going to compete against each other online. They both have their advantages depending on the consumer buying. But Don't get caught up in MSRP and retail price agreements. Get out of those if you can. Sell direct to consumer, and understand that that consumer looking for you knows your brand, likes your brand. You've built that customer, and they are searching for you because of that. You should get them, not your retailers. If you sell through Nordstrom, Nordstrom doesn't care if they bought your product before. Nordstrom cares that they buy from Nordstrom again, and they are going to push Nordstrom, not your brand. Occasionally they might, but at the end of the day, that's a Nordstrom customer. Kind of like Amazon doesn't give people customer data. They're a retailer. They don't owe you the customer data. That is an Amazon customer. They're never going to give you that data, at least in the foreseeable future. So understand that as a brand with retailers, you can also support your retailers by bringing in new people to the brand. You have more margin, and you can compete on non-brand terms better than your retailers. If you sell purple widgets, your retailers probably have a 50% margin. You probably have closer to 70, 75% margin to get that same customer. You can compete head-to-head with your competition better than your retailers. So be willing to do that and bring them into your brand. As a brand with retailers, you're going to get more aggressive. In this time period, you're probably going to have to be creative and support your retailers. I'm doing this with one of my retailers that actually is closed because they're in Portland, and they can't get customers in there. They sell plants. I have an organic fertilizer. I said, you know what? Tell you what, let's actually, I will help you sell plants online because you can ship them. If you don't know how to sell things online, thankfully I do. We're going to create these great little things that are going to include my fertilizer in your plants and your pots, and we're going to go spread joy around plant buying people stuck at home. It's going to be great. Hey, I didn't have to do that for them. They're a retailer of mine. They buy from me at wholesale. I'm fine with that. They're fine with that. But they're closed. I need them to stay in business to grow my brand. And if I get them to sell more products that have my product in it, great. Better for me, better for them. Get creative. Maybe do things you wouldn't normally do in helping your retailers when they're down. If you're in lead generation, I think this is almost business as usual. If you're spending money on paid search and lead generation, if people are searching for your product or your service, you want to be in front of them. I wouldn't change much. Logical position from a lead gen perspective, we're getting more aggressive. We know that there's going to be some issues within, other agencies' paid search accounts. We want to be on top of that. We want to get more companies. We want to grow through this. We want to come out stronger, bigger, better. So I think a lot of lead gen companies can survive and thrive right now because a lot of their competitors are going to default to holding back. Like, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't want to spend any money right now because it's unknown. Clicks right now are probably cheaper for many companies. Take advantage of that. If you are a local storefront, this is my last one, and then we can get to any questions we may have, or we'll just let you go before the top of the hour. But if you are a local storefront, like we have some clients that, for example, are escape rooms, and that's an entertainment thing that nobody's going to an escape room right now. You don't have the ability to bring people to your business. You don't have the ability to bring it to them. You are stuck. There's nothing really you can do. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you to start spending a bunch of money on paid search. That would be probably not very smart. Maybe there's some areas you can do. I haven't dove into one of those yet, but I'm guessing from a high level, a lot of escape rooms should not be spending money right now. What they can do, though, is find opportunities to engage and interact with their past clients through email. Maybe send them some puzzles through email, things they can do, because people that go to an escape room generally like solving problems. You can go into social. And this is kind of a grunt work thing that maybe you're going to have to do as the owner of the business or the marketing executive business. Is you're going to go out and find your customers. Maybe you need to partner with another local business that is in a similar situation, that you can do hangouts online, that you can together leverage the other brand's followers. Say, hey, we've got a special thing being done by Escape Room from Ryan. Try this puzzle today. Or maybe there's a online scavenger hunt you're going to do, and then the winner gets to help create the next escape room puzzle and be a part of that. You have to get creative. You have to really think outside the box. But again, your customers are out there, and while they might not be able to spend money with you right now, maybe they can buy gift cards. You can sell discounted gift cards now to join you when it's later. But I think the more valuable long-term play is finding out how you can keep your customers yours and find more customers, increase your social following. I think there's lots out there. It may not be revenue driven for you right now, but again, be creative, be aggressive. And let's see, looks like don't have any questions on there now. So hopefully it means that I just was the best speaker ever. So anybody on the call, if you have any questions, please email me. There's my email right there. Schedule with me. We're going to send this deck out. You can go to my calendar, schedule some time with me. this is a period of time where you need somebody that's probably been through it or understands it. And turns out most agencies have not been through a downturn like this. In fact, you know, unless they were alive during the Spanish flu in 1918 and through the Depression, they may have no reference to what actually is happening right now. So a lot of it is just seeing what's happening in the data and understanding that we've seen ups, we've seen downs, we know how to pivot quickly. So reach out to me. Hopefully I can help. If I can be a resource or an expert of any kind, I'd love to. Again, my passion is digital marketing and growing through digital ads on Google and Bing. But we have divisions on everything else, SEO, social media, and I spend my money on those things, so I know where my money is going. So again, thank you for your time. I appreciate you spending some time with me as you're all cooped up at home probably. So again, hope stay safe out there and stay healthy.